Man, there are a lot of characters in popular media that are attractive to the mind of a role player like me, and surely like yourself. Back in my younger days, I used to... Well, the darker days of the internet, yeah. I used to take part in these sort of play-by-post role plays on the black hole of the internet at the time, which was LiveJournal, back before Tumblr was the thing. There were these types of games that you could play that you had to, like, apply to play in, and they had this rigorous screening process that required far too much information, fiddly junk about the backstory of the character, the history of the canon that they came from, what they look like, and almost always two separate, like, writing samples that were always analyzed with far more scrutiny than, like, a college paper would, and always by people with fewer qualifications to boot. So there was always a ton of ridiculous drama in these games between the players, between different games, and between the characters in-world, and only one of those is okay. Yeah. But it got more and more ridiculous as time went on, and I found myself just kind of quitting one day. I got kind of sick of it, and I think that day a dark curse was broken, and I was released from this bad thing that had taken up a lot of my life. However, I think that not all of it was removed, because I sometimes look back on those times when I wrote terrible collaborative crack fan fiction about the characters I love. Days like today. But now I'm a more adult, mature role-playing games aficionado. So instead of that lame LiveJournal business, I play Dungeons and Dragons. Which is infinitely better, obviously, for reasons. So, let's build a few characters from popular media as Dungeons and Dragons characters so that they can be used in the games that you play. We are going to build these characters at the lowest possible level that can include all of their relevant abilities. So today we're going to start with one of my favorite characters in media, Howl Jenkins, better known as Wizard Howl from Howl's Moving Castle. Incidentally, if you guys didn't know, from a long time ago, this is Jazzy. She is the resident marine biologist and science person who's gonna just kind of hang out with us and do some stuff for a while as well.
So we know a great deal about Howl, but the most important aspect of him is that he's bonded himself to the fire demon, Calcifer, who we all know and
God,
love.
what a voice.
This would make him a warlock, and Calcifer would be his Infernal One patron. So we know that he's a talented magician on his own outside of his bond with Calcifer. He works with potions, he transforms his own body. He doesn't seem to have a spell book, though, so that leads us to kind of pin him as a sorcerer, despite him being called Wizard Howl and other such names.
So he has to be at least level 2, so he's Sorcerer 1, Warlock 1 to start, right? So let's look at some of the things that he does in the film so that we can kind of pin down his abilities. Firstly, he uses his magic to escape with Sophie from the Witch of the Waste's henchmen. Those weird blobby black dudes, you remember.
Yeah, I didn't like those guys.
They're weird. But it seems to be using the Fly spell. Levitate doesn't work in this instance. It's a lower level spell, but it doesn't work because he moves laterally with Sophie without having to, like, push or pull onto anything.
Fair.
And his movement is propelled forward by sort of making steps on an imaginary ground that, like, shimmers with their footsteps. Yeah. So it just kind of looks like a re-flavored Fly spell. So we're going to go with that. Fly is a 3rd level spell, which puts Howl's level to at least 5 in one of those classes. However, to affect 2 creatures at a time, Howl must either be using the spell with a 4th level slot, or be using the Sorcerer metamagic ability, Twinned Spell. So if we're going for the lowest possible level, we'll assume that it's Twin Spell, because you can get that earlier.
Right.
So it's looking he's like Sorcerer 5, Warlock 1. Yet.
Somewhere around there. One of the first magical effects we see Howl do in the film is force the soldiers that are accosting young Sophie to just march off by themselves. Just turn around, bye, against their will. So the lowest level spell that could be used for this effect is Command. But Command is neither a sorcerer nor a warlock spell.
Unless you are a warlock whose patron is the fiend, which we established earlier, so like we have with Calcifer.
Fair.
Then command becomes a warlock spell for you. However, command is a really basic spell that only affects one creature at a time unless cast at a higher level, like fly.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to maintain the lowest possible level of character creation for Howl, that means that we have to look more towards other enchantment spells. Hear me out. Something like suggestion would put the idea in their mind that they should leave, but it doesn't control them like this spell does. So this means that it has to be something like Dominate Person, which is a 5th level sorcerer spell, which means that we're putting Howl at Sorcerer 9, Warlock 1 with the twinned spell to make up for the 2 targets at once. Hear me out, there's reasons we didn't go Warlock 3.
One of the biggest pieces of magic he uses is the spell to reshape the castle and move it elsewhere.
Right.
So while the case could be made for the spell being something like Fabricate or Creation, I think the easier explanation is that Howe somehow learned Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion.
Okay.
His design of the mansion is simply irrelevant to anything he's doing until it becomes important for Sophie to have a room. Then he just redesigns the whole place to that specification.
Here's the problem, though. Mansion isn't a sorcerer spell or a warlock spell.
Again, with that problem.
Right? So we have to kind of reconsider what this deal is then. And I think if that's the way we're doing it, then the best way is done by replacing sorcerer with bard.
Dun, dun, dun,
Like I said,
Bard.
Hear me out. It makes a lot more sense with bard, and here's why. At level 6, the Glamour College Bard gets access to the Mantle of Majesty ability, which allows them to cast Command as a bonus action without expending a spell slot. And it sort of implies that in conjunction with the Enthralling Performance ability to charm a crowd of people up to your Charisma modifier, you should be able to affect multiple people with this command. So, I mean, that's an easy way to get both soldiers to just about face and out of the way without spending any magic slots. Bards also naturally get Fly and Mansion on their Bard spell list, which is nice. But also on the Glamour Bard's list is the ability for Enthralling Performance, which I mentioned a second ago, which allows the Bard to, like, swoon and enthrall people who listen to his performance. In Howl's case, his performance would be oratory. He would just
talking.
You know, because that's the way that you flirt with people, right?
Flirt?
That's how people flirt,
Is
right?
it?
Words?
I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
We play Dungeons and Dragons!
How do you flirt?
Well, anyway, this is a perfect explanation for his ability to woo so many women and his sort of short attention span regarding those women. He'd also have the cantrip Friends, which gives Howl advantage on charisma checks relating to one person for a short time, which I suppose that makes him quite a charmer.
Do I roll for flirting?
Howl's also been known to transform into a giant bird monster thing. This bird monster is pretty tricky because there are few ways of achieving it. You could cast a polymorph on yourself, but then you'd lose your mental stats and only be able to act like a big dumb bird.
Fair.
You could try to use a wild shape ability thing, but in order to get that form that flies, you need Druid 8, and we've already got too many levels for that to work out. The best way I can see is to use the spell Shapechange, which is unfortunately a 9th level spell.
And it's not on the Bard spell list, but, oh hey, Bards get magical secrets at level 18, which gets them 9th level spell, so that's a perfect time to steal that spell. And by that time, Howl would also have gained access to the Unbreakable Majesty feature, which makes him unnaturally pretty all the time, though he'd still have to take his time in the bathroom every day to make himself look just perfect.
The magic that attaches the door of the castle to the 4 specific places is definitely some sort of permanent version of the 9th level spell Gate. Perhaps Howl's cast the spell on the door enough times to make it permanent, Like, some other spells can be if they're cast every day for a year straight.
Then some druids get kind of
something like
that.
Yeah. He would have to steal Gate with magical secrets as well, which means that Shapechange and Gate, he doesn't get Wish.
Ugh, rough.
But, them's the breaks.
That's fair. Well, for some of the non-magical aspects of his character, we have the fact that he does spend that aforementioned 2 hours every morning in his bathroom, making himself look beautiful through the use of perfumes and makeups and potions and other sort of magical and non-magical means. This indicates that he probably has proficiency in something like the disguise kit. The Charlatan background not only grants him this, but it would also indicate his history as a heartbreaker and promiser of things he would not deliver.
Ouch.
There's a joke there.
This background even gives him that set of fine clothes, perhaps that lavender and pink jacket that we see him wear so often. He runs a shop that sells magic trinkets and potions and the like, but who's to say that any of them are anything more than just that con that he pulls?
Can you imagine, like, if all the stuff he was selling, he's a really powerful magician and he's just selling, like, salt to people?
Well, we don't really
Salts.
ever see any of the wares he sells being used, so this could just be his shtick, his scam.
Yep.
I think the thing that gives this background the best chance is the fact that Howl has taken on several identities semi-permanently, and this is
Okay.
an ability that is granted by the Charlatan background.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
false identity.
Yeah, because sometimes he's Wizard Howl, other times he's Howl Pendragon, or Jenkins the Sorcerer, or probably a host of other names and established personas that he's used for
Forever.
getting in with the ladies, like he does.
Now, he would have to be human.
Obviously.
And his background as a fast learner and talented child would probably make him the variant human rules, so he could get Prodigy.
Yeah, the racial feat Prodigy in Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Because then he would have an extra skill, an extra language, an extra tool proficiency, because he can do just about anything.
That's true.
Skill might be Arcana. The language might be something magic-y, like Draconic. Tools could be Alchemist's tools, because he still has all the trinkets and mixtures and potions and whatnot.
His relationship with Calcifer seems to be of a sort that upgrades his magic to a certain degree, but not to a really large one if we're to understand that he was a talented magician to begin with.
He might have been a musician. We never really delved into that.
Suppose that's true. We don't really know what his hobbies are other than getting in with the ladies. It could be argued, though, that we should go Warlock 2 with Howl to get access to invocations such that he could take Mask of Many Faces, so that he could be able to change the way he looks with Disguise Self at will. No spell slots required, that's pretty cool. And also Eldritch Sight, which gives him Detect Magic at will, as evidenced by when he found that magic paper that had been tucked into Sophie's dress pocket, as he sort of just already knew that she had it somehow. It was Detect Magic. Howl was already a talented and powerful magician before he met Calcifer, and literally just took pity on him to the point where he made a Warlock pact with him so that Calcifer could survive, not so that he could gain more powers.
That's fair.
So, I think we got him. Howl Jenkins is a variant human, charlatan, Glamour College Bard 18, Fiend Patron Warlock 2. The lowest possible level we could have built him is 20. I guess that's Howl for you.
Always gotta be extra.
Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for coming and watching, my dear loyal specs. I know I've been a little bit absent recently because of things, but I'm doing my best I'm doing my best to not be absent anymore, and I have this rad crew of people to help me with my videos now. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Major thanks to my patrons on Patreon, who will be down at the bottom of the screen this time because there's stuff all over it. I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. Obviously, the character sheet that I will make for Howl Jenkins, I will put up on Patreon for free. You don't need to be a patron to get access to that character sheet. You can just go on and get it because it would be a dick move for me to charge you for it.
Well, you are kind of a dick.
Yeah, listen, but shut up, though.
Yes, sir.
So, but yeah, I hope you guys had a good time. Look out for more videos of this nature in the future, and we will see you guys next time.